Well, good morning and welcome to another Freedom Friday. It is Friday and you are still not free, but hopefully you'll be freer after this hour than you are when we begin it. Teachers are getting fired and fined. We've talked about CRT a lot on this show previously, but now the material consequences are starting to come down the pipe. And I'm wondering if it is time for us to discuss whether or not there should be a teacher revolt in defense of civil rights and of real teaching and of real history. It might be getting real, folks. We're going to talk about it right at the other end here. Well, good morning. We gave you the cool intro music, got everybody excited and going now. Hopefully, when you see my intro, you're bobbing your head and you're like, it's not too crazy. It's not too PE-ish. How you doing, brother?
Good, man. That's like some smooth locks intro. You know what I mean? I'll be fretting like I watched something. You know what I mean? I saw a meme or two. You know what I mean? Yeah, doing well. Happy Friday.
Doing good this week.
Yeah, doing well. It's the last day of Freedom School for this summer, and it's been fantastic again being able to be amongst the youth leadership, watching them solve problems, address issues, confront the racism that they see and know is there, even though people tell them it ain't there. They like, we can see it. Yeah. Invisible air or not, we can see it.
Yeah. Our health is becoming, more and more important every day. Mental health, physical health, air quality, everything is important for us.
Yeah, it's a war against humanity just out there, right? Like they've been ravaging the earth. They ravage human beings. Like it's just nonstop, man. They don't care about water.
Yeah.
Greenery. This air, human beings. Like it's nonstop, man. It is nonstop.
I saw a thing today. And it was about a new variant of COVID. I think it's called Lambda.
Yeah, someone mentioned that in the I think our last 8 Black Hen. I had not heard of it. I think they put it in the chat like, yeah, that's what's next. I'm like, oh man, no.
Yeah, it's I forgot what country it was, but the country that has a couple of cases of it, I want to say South Korea, said that this variant is a threat to human society. Period. Now, if you can say that after a year and a half of
what we saw,
COVID 1 and COVID 2, I think actually, and this is going to be interesting for education and for us and for educators in general, this idea that we keep thinking that we're going to get back to normal soon and like we're almost there. I don't know who said it, but expectation is the thief of joy. So if you are expecting something and you don't get it, it's worse than if you just didn't expect it in the first place.
It was coming. Yeah, it wasn't even on your mind. Yeah.
So this idea, this picture we're painting for people that we're about to get all back together and it's all going to be fine and good, whatnot, is not adult. It could be setting us up for failure because when we do have to lock back down again or, live through tough times, right? Like think about how people were resilient during the Depression and other times. We're going to freak out. We're going to have people that could just be so mad. That's why I think a lot of people don't want to wear their masks and everything now today is because they're like, man, I'm just sick of doing it.
I'm sick of doing it.
I'm sick of doing it, and it's like, are you sick of living? Are you sick of being alive?
Somebody put up like, if you're annoyed about that, then they had this graphic image of what intubulation or something is like when they're like, all right, you sick of a mask? Check this out. You know what I'm saying? So
I mean, those.
I was like, whoa, that's.
I saw that meme. That's devastating. I didn't know that was what was meant by.
I had no idea.
Say it again. Intubulation.
I don't get me to messing it up. Ray will be on there. See, that's what you get for not citing it correctly. You know what I mean? You mispronouncing and everything. You know what I mean? But
Ray needs to stop being a troll in the comments. That's what Ray needs. Ray needs to stop trolling people from the sidelines. Well, listen, I want to jump in on our topic today. And basically, I want to share with folks just like a good example of kind of what we're talking about today. So we have a teacher that settled her case with Duval County Public Schools. It was a case around the Black Lives Matter flag in her school. She's got a settlement, but she has not had her contract renewed, which means she's not going to have a job over saying Black Lives Matter in the classroom or teaching about it or having the flag actually up. Now, what I find really interesting about this particular story is, first of all, let's every day call out what white power is. White power is the power to determine everything, determine what the rules are going to be, determine what can and can't be said, determine, who gets to say what, when, where, and how. That's white power. People don't want to call it what it is. This is not the show for you. This is not the time, for you to have an opinion, because actually this is not for you, boo. So let's move on. She basically kind of won her suit in that, she's going to she faced a pattern of retaliation after standing her ground on what she thought was standing up for Black students in her school. She had a Black Lives Matter flag, refused to take it down. So the win is that the school board accepted a settlement with her, but it's not really a win if you're not going to be teaching anymore in a district because they didn't like what you had to say. What I was going to say that I think is really interesting around this is that the school is called Robert E. Lee High School.
Yeah. Yeah. They're committed.
Yeah.
They're committed. They just changed it last night, the name, but they're committed to a philosophy, of ideology. And so I'm not surprised that the principal was up in there taking her flag down, harassing her. He's like, yo, you messing up the ghost of Robert E. Lee. Like, this is KKK county. What you doing? I mean, Black lives don't actually matter here.
You get the actual kind of just like ridiculousness, though, of we don't want our white kids to face to see a BLM flag, to have to encounter the idea of justice for Black people, which they don't have right now, to have to talk about the societal inequities that are driving things like Black Lives Matter. But you can have Black kids in a school called Robert E. Lee.
That ain't controversial. He's a local hero. Like, how dare you?
Now, let's go back to white power just for 1 second. White power is being able to say, I don't want my kids to be uncomfortable, and then having somebody write a law a couple of weeks later, and then having that law passed to solve their discomfort. Like
wildfire.
Yeah. What Black power would just say no Black child should be attending a school named after a Confederate. Like in the United States, no Black child should be attending a school named after a slave owner or a Confederate, because we don't want our Black psyche to be disturbed or uncomfortable by attending a school that literally is named after people who fought to keep us in bondage, right?
Yeah.
That would be Black power.
That would.
That's not what's happening. So I want to add one more thing to the stream: $5 million fine for classroom discussions on race in Tennessee. This is the new reality. There's also a teacher who was fired. So we have teacher firings for teaching about racial issues, accurate history in classrooms. And now it's, now we could potentially just take millions of dollars away from a school district if they have an incident of a teacher teaching what they see to be the wrong way. So my question for you, Sharif, now, with all the talk about teachers always seeing themselves as, we're liberators, we're abolitionists, we're like freedom fighters, like all that happy talk stuff that happens when the stakes aren't real. And you get away with calling yourself like, freedom fighter, abolitionist, because everybody thinks that, something bad happened, they would have been on the right side of history, If I had been a slave, I would have whooped a slave master's butt.
Folks would have been scared. Folks would have been scared. Like people need to stop lying. Like you got, like some folks say, instead of like teaching, talk about where it is, they should say, you know what, they should ask their principal, can I start a rhetoric class? Like I love rhetoric. Like that's what they should do. Just teach rhetoric And stop talking about like you're abolitionist, you're a freedom fighter, you're like just stop, because it goes deeper than that. Because that means you're saying, like, I remember when the young men I grew up in teaching with, Chris Johnson and Aaron Stark and Miles Wilson, all of us, like, I remember we would break our huddles like, yo, don't be afraid to get fired, bro. Like, that's how we break our huddles as 20 something years old, because we, our like mission and life and work was all connected. Like, nah, we're going to do what's right for Black children. Like, so for us to break our huddles, and we had other folks who was like, yo, y'all need to keep your head down. Y'all need to settle down. Like, try not to draw too much attention to yourselves, and that, like, if that's a strategy so that you can kind of be that spook, that's one thing. Right. But there's another thing, George Jackson said, like, patience has its place, but at some point it's cowardice. If you're just like, yeah, I'm patient, and yep, I'm watching that kid get brutalized. His mental health is being brutalized. His positive racial identity is being undermined. I'm just being patient, It's a difference. It's a difference. It's a mindset, and it's a commitment to the work that's at a different level. But we're going to see who's about the rhetoric and who's about the real.
Do you think that this would be a good time to band together with teachers unions, to push them on organizing teachers for the resistance? Like I don't know. I don't have a clear idea, but I'm thinking of things maybe like teach outs, like, work slowdowns. Like if a teacher gets fired, I think all the other teachers in that school should be banding together in some way, shape, or form to stand together.
They shouldn't be alone, right?
Yeah, they shouldn't be alone. You shouldn't get fired alone for teaching the truth. Do you think something like that has potential, or would you worry about there not enough teachers that actually would stand with that teacher?
Yeah, so I forget what the percentage of folks who were like, of educators, teachers in particular, who were like, yo, we ride with 45, right? Like, so
yeah, so a third of the teachers voted for Trump.
Third, right?
Yeah,
so that's a hell of a lot of folks, right? And those are the ones who admitted,
and a third lied about it too. That's the thing. A third voted for it.
Like, they're just so public about it, right? There's another group who is just like, yo, this is ballots are secret, like, we don't have to share anything.
HIPAA. HIPAA says I don't have to tell you who I voted for.
But if the union ain't for this, then what are you unified about? Like what? There's absolute, like, just disband. Just turn your cards in, because if you can't unify around something like this, then this is absolutely crazy. If I've seen. This is one of the I don't know if it's still there, but back in the day, there used to be a byline in the union contract that said principals shall not read announcements to folks in meetings. Like, that was a source of contention, a point of contention, that principal read an agenda or whatever. And look, I don't think that's the best way to present information all the time, to just gather people around just so you can read the memo that you could have emailed. Like, I get, but that was in the contract, bro. That was in the contract. But if you could put that, you could fight for that. If you could say, like, we ain't budgeting unless that's in there. But then you can sit back and not unify, not just like, oh yeah, if something comes to the table, then we'll show up and represent you. I'm like, nah, be on the offensive. Like, be on the offensive. And then let's talk about, like, what are we unifying about around? So yeah, not just disband.
I like to be straight and transparent with our audience all the time, and with you and anybody that that I interact with. So here's a point of transparency. I've been talked to privately. Chris, you got to stop saying positive stuff about the teachers unions on the CRT issue, right? Sure. You need to actually be, they're against school choice. They're against, like, a lot of things that we believe in. And there's never a time really to say positive things about them, and, blah, blah, whatever. And, by living by the Malcolm X theory, I'm for truth, no matter who says it. I'm for justice, no matter who's against it. It's a pretty good rule to have. It's a rule to live by, because that way you won't get caught up in the denying things when your enemies actually are doing good stuff, and overlooking it when your friends are doing bad stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, so to that I say, if teachers unions are going to be the only ones out here who possibly can organize teachers to push back on something that is so obviously glaringly wrong, fines against teachers for teaching accurate history, muzzles on teachers to prevent them from teaching anything that opposes white supremacy, a complete full frontal assault on all anti-racism programs, because pro-racism is the new way to go for white nationalism, a full frontal assault and making the public dumber and ignorant about diversity and inclusion programs, which aren't curriculum, which aren't classroom teachings, which are basically elective overlays on top of everything else that happens in schools. If people in our camp, and I don't have a camp because I'm not friends with anybody that's for injustice. So if people aligned with us or associated with us or in our realm are going to be a part of the rebirth of a nation, the second coming of Jim Crow, the modernizing of Black codes and speech codes, and attempting to make all of public education a sundown town, if that's where we're at right now, then I'm aligned with anybody who is ready to light a torch to bring light to that, to show the people the way, and to fight against it. And if that's teachers unions who happen to represent the teachers in the classrooms, who now, because of right-wing people, many of whom were aligned with us, are becoming frontline justice workers in a way that they never had before. Now, the question for them is, are you up to the task? Are you willing to lose your job if you had to? Are you willing to stand with people who lose their job? Listen, Red for Ed, you were ready to throw on a t-shirt for a few extra dollars on your paycheck. You were ready to not go to school and go to work at all. You were ready to shut down all the schools, baby. Like, listen, you were ready to just jeans, t-shirts, sneakers on the Capitol lawn for a few dollars on the paycheck. So how about a few dollars on justice, right? You willing to do the same thing? So I need to pressure our right-wing friends and our left-wing friends. What do you think, Sharif?
Listen, Red for Ed, let's be red for Black. That's what, be red for Black. While we're talking about this, CRT a lot, at the end of the day, what they're fighting up against, what they're pushing up against is the ability to be, do AHT, accurate historical teaching. Mm-hmm, and that's what, that's worth fighting for. If we're talking about, we want our students to be critical thinkers, we want them to be able to problem solve, we want them to be smart. I mean, keep in mind, this is the same country that year after year after year, they tell you, the surveys out there like, yo, Americans are pretty dumb, when it comes to history, when it comes to current events, when it comes to global affairs, that continues. So but they're saying we want to be worse, right? It's not bad enough for us to be, the average American not to know a thing about history or civics. They're like, that still ain't good enough. They're like, how dare we be at the, towards the end of the pack? We demand the end of the pack. We want to be the caboose of education. That's what we want for our citizens. And so, to watch this all play out, I 100% agree with you. Anyone who's, first of all, saying oh, don't say anything positive about people doing positive things, no matter where you stand with them on other issues. First question is, what are you doing? And secondly is fall back. First, ask them, what exactly are you doing about this? You just, because chances are they're far more silent than the folks that you are, you're calling out and you're shining light on. You're saying yes, we stand with you, union, when you're doing the right thing for on behalf of students and all students, and particularly the students who have to go to schools or attend ecosystem with the mindset of a Robert E. Lee, right? It's one thing to have the school named after these folks. It's another whole thing to have a pedagogical framework that's laden with that type of mindset. And that's national. That's all around the country, north, south, whatever. That's all the same pervasive garbage. And, so I'm glad to see when organized efforts, because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take where they're organized, right? And who said it? Like, we're not outnumbered, we're out organized, right? Like, and so probably Stokely Carmichael or somebody, but right, like they're talking about like organizing, and if that is already a block of educators who are organized, the third of them who are who do stand for righteous teaching, yeah, we need to be with them on this issue, and push and challenge and fight and counter sue and inform, and you know what, like at the end of the day, we gotta fight.
Michelle Johnson says her solution is teach the content. You can't get fired for teaching the primary source. The Douglas autobiography is the best slavery textbook.
Just pick it up. Pick it up. Here's what they said about why they fighting.
Yeah, I want to push back on this, though. It's not actually true that teaching primary sources is going to save you in this situation. Right now, literally, they are fighting things like the I Have a Dream speech. Texas governor aims to take I Have a Dream speech out of schools, and that's not all. Also wants to take out the diary.
This is the governor, mind you. Like,
yeah.
Like that's some, just some drunk dude on the porch in his t-shirt and drawers. Like, this is the governor of an entire state.
Well, and they want to curb teaching on Cesar Chavez, the Chicano education movement, women's suffrage, Martin Luther King Jr. I Have a Dream speech. I think I saw in one state it was the his letter from a Birmingham jail was seen as being divisive and race baiting, is kind of along those lines of what they had in terms of pushback. I don't know if I just said it already, but the Diary of Anne Frank. I mean, come on, like, that was uncontroversial for the longest period of time. So now we're getting to the part where we don't want to make Nazis feel bad. We don't want like out and out Nazis to feel bad about what you're teaching.
Nazis, damn it, and their children should not be made to feel uncomfortable. Like,
there's some very fine people in the Nazis. Like,
I mean, one thing that in that, at least in that article, it said that was stripped away from required teaching.
Yeah.
Right? So this is where the educator mindset comes, right? Like, if you're looking at that and you're taking your unit maps, your lesson plans, and you're looking at what he's saying, what the governor is saying, and changing that based on that, then you got a problem. You should just find something else to do. You should find another career, because you're like, you're missing the point. Some people understand the assignment and they go all in. Some people, they don't know what the assignment is. The assignment is to teach, not like F the governor. Like, teach children to be critical thinkers, teach accurate history, teach students to be problem solvers and analyze, be able to analyze. Only way to solve future problems is to have the right understanding of the problem. And they don't want you to have the right understanding of the problem. So the idea of that, they're removing it from the required list, and then there's going to be a bunch of folks who's like, yeah, see, it's not required, so I'm not going to do it. That means you didn't want to do it in the first place.
Yeah. Which is probably true.
It's true. They may have been doing it for observational purposes, right? Like, I'm being observed, this is required, so I'm doing it.
Yeah, I mean,
how many?
Probably a lot of teachers right now that have probably privately, said to their politicians, they make us do this lesson on, this stuff we don't care about or whatever. So,
so Emory letters that used to get sent, to the governor's office and ignored.
Yeah,
that's probably being read now. They're being highlighted. That's at the top.
Oh, they probably got office for it. Yeah, they got a person who sits there and opens it. Oh, yeah, this is good. Yeah, let's roll with this. Emory Edwards says, so hearing you guys defining white power and what black power should look like in response to white power in action, what are your thoughts around black and brown parents, activists starting to use the laws to sue districts and departments of education on the basis of the mental anguish that black and brown students endure in schools named after Confederate leaders and other similar curriculum standards? So this would be, like if white people can take it to the mat and take it to the law on things that are causing anguish amongst their little Britneys and Bobbies, what can black people do and brown people And Emery, stop leaving beige people out of the mix, bruh. So black, brown, and beige parents, um, um, what we gonna do? Can we sue? Can we use that as a line of attack? Because you're literally in a building name. I mean, imagine being Jewish and going to Hitler Academy.
And had a social worker sick on you if you don't if you got a poor attendance, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, if you don't go.
Yeah, if you don't go, right? So I think we can't use one strategy. I don't think a whole lot of lawsuits will win. We saw, what was that lawsuit in Detroit, where the judge said, you can't go leave school expecting to be able to read. Like that ain't, he threw the case out. I was like, nah, you can't hold them accountable for good education or good school or good work, conditions within the school. So I don't have a lot of confidence. You'll have courtrooms here or there. I think, some of this stuff will end up in the Supreme Court. And the battleground is varied. You got rugged terrain, you got mountainous terrain, you got the nautical apparatus. So I think same thing with this type of fight. You have to be all over. So organized, strategic, and it has to be a well thought out, well planned. So yes, the lawsuits, yes, building our own schools, yes, pulling our children out, yes, organizing with those who are in an organized block and fighting for this, all of the above, A through Z.
I'm going to say to this brother's point, though, and to what you're just saying, the decision in Detroit won. The lawsuit, the students who sued for literacy in Detroit as a right won. It was
it was the lower case that threw it out. Then I think they
threw it out.
It.
Yeah, they had to go back.
And
they were wondering whether it was going to have national implications. Now it has failed in other places. They won in Detroit, which was a fairly, big win for them. I want to say California or somewhere else, they lost. And if we remember Vergara, the students in the Vergara case in California won their first round. And that was to prove that they were getting lousy instruction that was catastrophic to their lives. They won in the lower court, and then the Supreme Court overturned the win. I forgot exactly how it goes, but it was something weird like, you did prove your case that you have bad teachers that are teaching you inappropriately or whatnot, but you didn't prove. I think it was like that. It was
systemic and on purpose or something.
No. But you didn't prove that you have a constitutional right to good teaching.
Yeah.
That was they were like, you are literally getting bad teaching. We know it. We can see you did prove that in court. However, there's no constitutional right to good teaching. And this is where it comes down to teachers' unions, where some of my friends who think we should not be too eager to work with them on these things. This is where I get what they're saying, because if we're expecting to align with people on CRT who don't believe that you should have a constitutional right to good teaching, and that the teacher's job is literally a piece of property, because California defines a teaching job as property. So the reason why you can't fire a teacher easily in California is because you are separating them from their property, not because of any other reason. That literally
student outcomes. Yeah.
Right. And if you look at who the teachers are, and you think, okay, a teaching job is like a land, it's like property, you have to come to the agreement that it's white property. So what you're trying to do for Black people in a colonial school system is going to bump up against the property rights of teachers. And then we're expecting those teachers to join us in a fight against racism and CRT. So I'm just saying, for those of you all that would do it as teachers, who I see a lot of y'all like in these equity summits and in these, cry fests, and in these situations where you're reading all the right books and you're studying all the right things. And then sometimes the rubber hits the road and you got to act on some of that stuff. And I just don't know where it's at. I just don't know where it's at. Sherry Lucas Hall agrees with me on stop leaving beige people out. Thank you, Sherry.
Sherry, please don't encourage this madness. Please don't.
William Conrad says, according to Trump, Hitler had some good ideas, which is very important because we are starting to normalize. Not starting to, we have actually in all of the Trump areas started normalizing some things that we thought we had won. Ideas like Hitler bad, right? Like marching with tiki torches and burning crosses and shit, bad, right? And we came across with time. Well, is it though?
It went from the undebatable to the plausible. Like, no,
why I mean, I'm not for it and everything, but it's like, what's a little cross burning out there? Yeah. And if we just said what we said earlier today, at least a third of teachers voted for Trump. I want to say more union households than that actually voted for Trump. That should actually be more of a alarm bell. We got to stop thinking of our teachers as liberal people and as progressives. Some of them are.
And that's the thing. But I think a big part of this is being sophisticated in our work, right? Like not having these broad brushes and just like, oh yeah, you're a teacher, you're automatically good. Or it's a school, they automatically care about children. Like, we have to be far more sophisticated in how we view our alliances, go into coalitions with our eyes wide open, with skepticism and good intent. Like come with good intent and have a healthy dose of skepticism, right? Like, hey, like, you know what? You still have the pants on of a costume that I don't bang with, even though if you took the shirt off, and so understanding that, but realizing like, what, we can get from point A to point B in a direct line or, roundabout ways together in this particular group. And at some point we'll break off. But right now, what we're working on, what we're furthering, what we're prioritizing, that's where the sophistication comes in. Just like, we can't be, 4-year-olds and just tangent like, no, you know what? I disagree with this. So everything, I'm gonna hold my breath. Right. And, the kids who like, we had a family friend, her kid, who's the same age as my youngest brother, Hussein. His name was Mahdi. Mahdi, as a 2-3-year-old, when he would get mad, he would bang his head on the ground, what I mean, until they stopped doing whatever it was that he did what to do. Hussein, my little brother, tried that. He tried it one time. It was just like, yo, I ain't doing that no more. He's looking at Mahdi like, yo, our alliance right here is ended. We want something, but this is killing me right now. So that we have to have at least the level of sophistication of a 2-3-year-old to say like, we're going to, make our demands. We're going to fight. We're going to resist. And then when it gets to the point when you're back on that other stuff that's hurting my head, hurting my children, then then we'll peel off. But let's be sophisticated about it. A little mature. So a little political maturity is called for sometimes. You know what I mean?
That's asking a lot, brother.
It is.
That's asking a lot of people that, let's just put it this way. There's not a lot of political maturity going around right now. We're falling apart. We have people right now, it's not in vogue at all. And actually at the highest levels, the so-called leaders are exhibiting like end of empire type of behavior. They're actually making ignorance popular. They're like mainstreaming ignorance. Like it used to be smart, or it used to be popular to have smart people and educated people and authoritative people and studied people, at least leading the discussions, even when they were wrong. At least that's what we valued. We valued that. Now we have complete ignoramuses who are leading national debates of great import. I mean, like life or death, science around things like masks and vaccinations. And you have governors that are passing bans on masks. Not it's your decision as a school district or whatnot, or just, we're going to say you can't wear a mask. You have schools that literally said that their teachers could not be vaccinated or they would be fired. There's a charter school. Yeah, there's a charter school in Florida that literally said these vaccines are untrue or untested and blah, blah, blah. And if you get vaccinated, you're putting our kids at risk and their freedom and their liberty at risk and blah, 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 whatever. We've gotten to a point where Rand Paul, a sitting congressman, is telling people that Biden is purposely finding kids at the border who have COVID and shipping them off in different parts of the country to purposely stoke COVID fears, right? as we said earlier, we have new variants of COVID starting in the world that could threaten humanity on the whole. We have ignorant leadership just in general in the United States that is actually pushing the morons among us. The morons, they're literally justifying the morons among us to believe the most moronic things. And that's the real pandemic. The pandemic is actually not a virus in the traditional way that we think of it. The real pandemic is a pandemic of stupid, a pandemic of racism, a pandemic of moronic beliefs, attitudes, and thoughts. It's people who watch 5 minutes of Sean Hannity and actually believe that they learned something, and now they can talk about things of great import. Yeah. Now, the only thing to stop an empire from sliding into complete ruin, like we've seen, if anybody who has studied empires and knows what the last days of empire sounds like and looks like and whatnot, and we're in it, baby, just that we are there. Anybody who realizes that knows that there's only one thing that can save you in that situation, and that is a substantial increase in the intellect of the empire itself and a consciousness about their decline, a consciousness about needing to do something different. Or else you just ruin the earth in climate change. We're not going to become educated. We're going to become stupider about climate change. Okay, well then you're going to die of climate change, right? We're going to become dumber about how foreign governments can actually play citizens against each other in a country to ruin them from the inside. Oh yeah, well I saw that Russia stuff, but I don't really care about that. Fox News told me that's not really a big deal. The real problem is Antifa and BLM and people asking for their civil rights and those wacky trans people and all those others. Yeah, no, I mean, I saw all the Central Intelligence information around how Russia and other nations know they can't beat us with missiles, but they definitely can beat us with ignorance, because we have that in noodles and we're toxic with it. So, I mean, if I wanted to kill the United States, this is exactly how I would do it. Start implanting stuff in media about masks are against your liberty. Don't get vaccinated, blah, blah, blah. Die, fool. Right? The only way you can get out of that is educating yourself out of it, which I think means now our teachers have a third job.
Fighting, kicking and fight, screaming.
I mean, is that too much? Is that too dramatic for teachers to say, teachers, man, you're kind of like the new army. You're like the ignorance reduction army. The only thing that can save us right now is ignorance reduction. And teachers are like, well, listen, goddammit, I already have big classes. I already have student debt. I'm already hanging on by a thread. Now you tell me I have to save humanity? What next?
Hey, if that ain't what education's all about, I think it's, it's always been that, vital of a role. But I think it has to be even more declarative at this point. We got village idiots with more power, coming out, trying to, make the country dumber, make the country meaner, make the country less humane, make the country, ignorant. And with so much of white supremacy based on lies, it only makes sense that they want to, how do you protect a lie? You lie again. And so that's what this movement is. It is protecting the lies that they realize that more and more people are being awakened, right? It's not just, oh, that's that fringe group over there trying to, it's Paul Robeson and the communist. Oh, it's the Martin Luther King and the communist. It's right. It was this constant, that mainstream America bought often and was like, yeah, that's right. It's them. Now it's no longer, a way to do that without constantly furthering the lies in pretty public ways. So the village idiots got that. And you know what? There's a saying out there that you get the leadership you deserve. And so we need to, one, have a reflection moment. What happened in the immediate and distant past that where we deserved as a country, not me individually, but as a country, what did we happen that we deserved a 45, that we deserved the governor of Texas, that we deserved the idiot in Pennsylvania who's trying to pass similar anti-CRT laws? There's something you get the leadership you deserve. And so if we want to show that we deserve something better,
do you think the answer to that is? Like, what do you think the answer to your question is there? What did we do to deserve 45?
Yeah, I think some of it was a lot of it was complicit in the lies, like just allowing things to happen, being infatuated with situations, right? Like sometimes you can see, and some of this is human nature. You're looking at say you look at a car wreck and you can't turn away. You're entertained a little bit, even though it's a disaster, right? And I think that's how 45 was covered. I think there was a whole lot of kind of looking away and saying, no, it's okay, like forgiving behavior that was actually inhumane. It was oppressive, and it was kind of like, it's okay. If you look at that, and not only complicit, you're actually cooperating, right? Like you're going a step beyond being complicit about something. You're cooperating with the madness. You're being entertained, gleefully entertained, and actually like, oh, I actually don't mind for him to run. I actually don't mind for right, and it's kind of like, oh, it's just let freedom from, and no protection of, freedom to, but no insight about freedom from. What should our children be protected from? What should women be protected from? What should anybody, a human being, be protected from? Throwing all that to the wayside and just say freedom to do this, grab this, say this, disparage that, lie about that. Yeah, okay. Then that's what you like. That's what you're going to get. And they like the lies. They liked his obnoxious behavior. They liked him talking about, I'm the boss, I do what I want, I'm not accountable. They liked it, and that's what they got.
Feels like we missed a lot. So not understanding history and how these things work was something that made us deserve 45.
Yeah, he's the ultimate backlash, right? Like
yeah, but like he was the ultimate in it that we should have seen coming, right? Like after years of Rush Limbaugh, years of like the Newt Gingrich contract on America, years of Lee Atwater, all the like Willie Horton stuff going back a long ways. And before all of that, there's people alive today who don't remember any of that, how that, emerged. Oh, yeah. We didn't teach our kids about, how talk radio was going in the ear of white males for 2 decades or 3 decades, telling them you're the victim, people are taking your country from you or whatnot. And we weren't listening to that because that's not our thing. That's not our channel. But on their channel, they were getting 2 or 3 decades of you're the victim. These people are taking over your country. You need to fight back. It's a conspiracy, blah, blah, blah. And this is long before Trump. This is well long. And they started normalizing things before Trump. They started normalizing certain very David Duke-ish type of talking points.
Bro, I forget, but, David Duke, the boy from, North Carolina, South Carolina, used to actually win. What was the boy?
Jesse Helms,
right? Like these folks were winning. Like they, so yeah, it's never like gone away. So I don't want to imply at all, the fact that a Ronald Reagan announces, his presidency, at, in or around Philadelphia, Mississippi. Yeah. Right? A couple decades, 2 decades, not even, right? A couple, 2 decades after, and remember, they were looking for those 3 murdered civil rights men and found 10 more, just like, oh yeah, here's the one. Oh yeah, this one's in a core t-shirt. Oh, this one we can't identify him, but he has a core t-shirt. He was an activist that went down. Oh, we've been looking for him for years, like all of that, right? And so for him to announce his presidency and not to go, it's one thing going there like, hey, you know what? I'm here because this is grounds that were hallowed ground. Like people were murdered here for saying, I am a human being, treat me as such. Not going there to say that. Going there to ignore everything that happened there historically and was still probably happening to say, hey, y'all, I'm running for president. That means that's a message being sent. Right. And folks ignored that. Folks ignored it. Just like, that's not a big deal. Yeah, he could have made a better decision about where to go. Like maybe that wasn't, bruh, it's the same. I mean, all this is the same stuff.
Yeah, I think their level of that, the Ronald Reagan was also, at a time where they felt like they were losing their country. They needed a white response to maintain white supremacy. But the level has only been at the level of which they think they need to exert to maintain power. So as it gets more urgent to them, as they see more ascendant non-white people and more power loss, like they're not in control of things, they escalate. And then they de-escalate when they've got it all under control a little bit. But
and
I
at
mean,
the escalation, we get lulled to sleep. Like, well, things getting a little better. Maybe we should take our foot off the pedal because they're all right. Like, we could work with them. We could talk with them, right? Like, that's the lullaby.
I mean, Tanya Algarin says here, Mama Toya says, birtherism and 45 was pissed when he was roasted by Obama, and that gave you the birth of Trump. But imagine that he ran for president long before he was running for president on birtherism, on Obama's the dumbest person in the history of presidents, and he's not really an American, and we need to check his birth, certificate or whatnot. And the media treated that as like a legitimate news story on his end, and gave him a platform. And his platform was racism. Yeah.
And the thing about it, he was just repeating what he had when he put out that full page ad and said, like, oh yeah, these teenagers who are innocent need to be murdered anyway. They need to be lynched. Like, he was calling for the lynch mob back then. That lynch mob just grew and grew and grew. Like, the calling for the lynch mob started, much, much earlier. And yeah, he felt like, you know what, I have an audience, whether they're in the closet or not, whether they're hooded or not. I know my tribe is out there, and I'm going to tap into it. I'm going to do it in a massive way.
The silent majority, they're not silent. They're afraid to speak up, because if they speak up, they know that the mob will come for them. The black mob will come and cancel them. Cancel culture. I'm like, which one of y'all is being canceled for real? Yeah. Like Ben Shapiro, which one of y'all being canceled? There is no such thing as actually canceling people who can't be canceled.
Not those folks with that power. They ain't getting canceled.
They're not getting canceled at all. As you do things like freedom schools and the freedom school work, and we do literacy projects, and we're creating schools and environments for our kids that feel like little safe harbors. When you're immersed in that, does that feel like you are stepping out of all of this stuff for a period of time to be able to just have a safe environment for our kids or whatnot? And you're more hopeful when you're in that space and whatnot, that they're not going to be infected and intoxicated by all of that. Like, what's your mindset as you're doing something that is a bit more healthy than what's going on in these other schools?
Yeah, I definitely feel really optimistic when I'm, in that freedom school space. Same way I did when I'm inside of a school, amongst the youth, working with the youth, working with committed educators, like that actual freedom fighters who are just like, nah, we're not just waiting for the moral arc of the universe to bend. We're bringing our hammer. Like, so yeah, definitely brings a lot of inspiration. But it's almost like, but I'm never like naive about like what the actual conditions are outside of there. Like, these are what, 3 sites and virtual, so even with like these 30 states represented in our freedom schools community, that's still just a drop in the bucket, right? Like, I can't help but to think that, at one point, Philadelphia itself had 20 freedom school sites. Now that number's down to 4, right? And so there are conditions that caused it to, decline. And so I am not forgetful of that. That is in, on the dashboard, looking at and understanding that deeply. How I look at it, though, is it's an opportunity for students who have to be in like hazmat suits to navigate, and Black educators, Black college students, high school students, right? Like all the generations who come together, they get a little opportunity to take off their hazmat suits and breathe a little bit, and then guess what? 3:00 hits, they got to put that back on, and we got to check to make sure that there are no punctures in that suit, and send them out into the world. And so though that time out into the world can be, a day where they're coming back the next day, or it can be, months or years or whatever. So I think it's a, I feel blessed to be a part of this work, to build on the history of folks who've been, whether it was the SNCC members, Charlie Cobb, Marion Wright Edelman, locally, Dr. Baba Carr, Greg Carr, Erica Asekoye, Mama Aisha Imani, all these folks who poured into to keep a tradition, which traces back to, to the continent, to the motherland. Like, yeah, take care of the children, how are the children? That's it's a small response to the how are the children answer, so that their answer, at least during this time, can be a little bit different than what Black children's answers normally might be.
I like it as a strategy, just in general, as a strategy to create, number one, safe harbor, not just for children, but also for adults that work with children and their parents and whatever, to build small, healthy communities and learning communities, culturally affirming, as a response. Because sometimes, we can awfulize the world. This entire conversation that we've had today is in big, broad, dramatic terms, like, the world's going to a handbasket, which just might be me, aging, who knows? Our leaders are out of control. Our headlines are: parents fight against masks, parents fight each other, parents fight against CRT, parents fight against X and Y and Z. The white people are coming. The white people are coming. You're pulling the covers over our head. I see white people. It's awfulized. We've awfulized the whole thing. Not because we authorize it. The situation itself is just horseshit, right? Just be just real. We're in real trouble in the world right now because we need smart, educated people, but we're not getting it. So let's say I unplugged from the news. I just didn't watch the news. Let's say I decided I'm not going to watch CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. I'm not going to watch news. I'm going to get off of social media. I'm not going to pay attention to any of this. I moved to Colorado, and I just breathe in the air there and chill on some mountain somewhere and smoke a bunch of weed. Who knows? The world would instantly look better. So it is possible to create environments where you're not in constant anxiety and stress about what's going on in the world. Now, take away the Colorado example. We should be putting our kids into situations where they're getting less of the toxicity and they're getting less of all this stuff we're talking about, so that maybe they could be the true leaders. And maybe that's the small thing we can do. Because we can't boil the ocean. We can't do big things all the time. But we can contribute to small actions, which one, we can support schools that are getting it right, teachers that are getting it right, programs, after school programs and other things. I don't know that it's sufficient, but it seems like it's the only thing that is trending the right direction in my mind.
Yeah. Remember James Baldwin said, hope is born every day, right? And so I really think, not only talking about the children, but adults as well, who are are born with an idea. They may have an epiphany, or they may have a new commitment, or they may have a new stance or new learning. So that hope is pervasive. And so I think, yes, the world's on fire, and there are a whole lot of light workers out there doing, doing God's work, having, just this commitment to community, to humanity, to environmental justice, racial justice, educational justice, healthcare, right? There's so many light workers out there. And so I think a part of it is making sure that we get balanced, and that we tap into that in whatever space, right? Like, that's part of self-care. Because you can go into a spiral and just end up throwing your hands up, right? Because and sometimes, and we may all go through that type of pattern, but we have to have a way, some kind of lifeline to snap out of that if we catch ourselves going in there, because it can be paralyzing. And the enemy wants you to feel that you're alone, and that it is hopeless, and that it is no point of fighting and resisting. That's what they'll say, give up, you are surrounded. That's what white supremacy says. Give up, you are surrounded, you are infiltrated, you have no hope. And the moment we believe them, and they're only saying that because they see that there's a whole lot of folks out there that think like you, that are working towards similar goals. And the only way they can to stop the onslaught against white supremacy is to try to keep the division. And part of the division isn't like animosity and like, oh, I don't like you, that kind of division. A big part of division is just making you feel that you're alone, and there is no one else like you. No one else is going through that. And there's no one else to band together with. That's how they win. That's their winning hand. We know it,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to recognize it. And even when we feel ourselves slipping down there, that's why community is so important. That's a big part of why I love Freedom School so much. It's a community. It's this intergenerational, elementary school students, high school students, college students, adults coming together and saying we're working in community of others, in community with others to to make change. And who's change? The elementary school students have to say like, hey, this is what I want to change around here, and adults have to listen to them. Like, that's a big part of it. So it's the literacy, but there's also this action project that's around educational justice, racial justice, environmental justice. These first, second, and third graders, each of them has to decide, what do I want to change, right? And lifting their truth, that's voice and choice. Not just, oh, I want to read that book. Yeah, that's voice and choice. Yeah, I want to talk about that. Yeah, that's voice and choice. I want to change this. That's another level of voice and choice. And so doing that in community of others is like, that's the best antidote to despair. We can't go into despair, so
I think that actually is so smart around the theory of light workers. I hadn't heard that James Baldwin quote before, but it falls in line with some other things like Mr. Rogers. I hate to offer him. Mr. Rogers says, in times of trouble, look for the helpers. Look for the people that are doing the help work. And your thing around light workers, you do have to offer people hope and actionable hope. Not just hope, not just idle hope, but actionable hope. I love it. I also want to, promote that, like, back in, when was this? This was October 27, 2020. It was about the first ever virtual Freedom Schools Literacy Academy models liberation education and gets results by Sharif El Mekki. Now, to me, it seems like virtual is something that you can offer to anybody, anywhere, not just a limited number of people. So I don't know why you're not, like, why you holding out on providing this opportunity to more people.
Virtual. It's virtual. We just gotta, we do have, we do need more funders to be able to really, continue to spread. We're hoping to be in person next summer in a new city and keep growing. Ultimately, we want to be in 10 cities in person, but virtually we want to continue to have that. So, there were 33 states represented in our virtual program. Wow. But it's expensive, right? And so we're grateful for the funders that we've had, and we have to, get more, to really be able to continue to grow it and make it the just amazing experience that our children deserve. So we want to pilot an after school program, Freedom School Literacy Academy after school program. Where students can, again, have these kind of detox centers, positive racial identity development, literacy. We want to add numeracy and things like that, and have like enrichment. Like, what would that look like from 3 to 6 after school for for young children? So excited to do that. Excited to do things like partner with Reconstruction. .us, and I think it's things like this that can be done virtually, but still build community, right? Like, and that's the thing. It's not just, it's engagement, right? So many of the families say, like, hey, during the school year, they were virtual and they were, educators did not know how to engage or build community. It was, first round, it was just like by shock, right? It was like everything was shut down immediately. But then there were a lot of districts that didn't plan over the summer that, okay, let's continue. Let's make virtual experience the best. It was just like, we're just holding on until we can get back to what we used to do, and I think that's the wrong mindset. I think that's the other version of going to Colorado, right? It's like really putting your head in the sand, like being an ostrich, so ostrich feels under attack. He's like, let me put my head in a hole and it all disappears. We have to, we have to be really conscious and creative and understanding that, no, we got to do things differently. And so what best way to do that than to look at have that that moment where we look back so we can move forward. All right, what did our folks do when they were getting a sharecropper education, as they called it, or Jim Crow education, that the SNCC used to call it? What did they do? They started bringing kids together and intergenerational, and educating in trees and under trees, and in basements. And all right, how can we continue to do that? How can we build that? Oh, virtually. Now technology, and we're just applying the technological innovation to age-old solution. Malcolm said, when you take an L, look at how other people solve the problem, and then see what you can learn from it and apply it. So that's what we're doing. We're taking that SNCC model. We're taking the underground schools, right? Like, in the innovation of when you read that Black folks would risk their lives to have schools, learn words, memorize Bible passages, and then try to figure out which word is God. Which of these words? I heard the G, right? Like, that's how they were memorizing things, then saying, like, all right, I know that G. Let me find it in this I got a page of a Bible, right? If they were doing that, like, listen, we have no excuse. Like, no matter how much the society is burning, we have no excuse. Like, they already, who said it? They've already paid the price.
Yeah. For us.
They already paid the price for us. We just got to
seize it.
We got to recognize it and seize it.
How can people support Freedom Schools and any of your efforts? I know you just said finances are tight. You'd like to do more, whatnot. What kind of supports can people do?
I mean, we don't charge families to participate, so it's always, tremendous cost. We pay the high school students to learn how to teach first, second, and third graders. We pay the college students. We want it to be a wage that they can, afford, and good coaching, also costs. So, people can go to the centerblacked.org. There's a donate button there. Please spread the word. If you hear of grants or things like that, please share it with us. But, ultimately, please continue to champion. And, as they say in our tradition, best place to be are in people's hearts and prayers. So please keep us in your hearts, continue to pray for us. And part of a prayer is action. So be a philanthropist too.
So I love that as a place to end. I'll add to that last piece. We started the show with this concept or idea around, should teachers revolt now? Like, we're up against a serious the headwinds of injustice. They're blowing us back and threatening to erase a lot of the progress that we've made. So is it time for a revolt? And that's a cute kind of title for a podcast. But beyond being a cute title for a podcast, what's the actionable strategy that we would be asking for in terms of a revolt? Is it just, speaking out, or writing letters, or attending your school board meeting and giving a very good 3-minute, well-delivered, well-reasoned pushback on what the other people are there to say? Is it to corner your politicians and say, you're my representative in my district, I am an educator, and you will listen to me, and I'm going to tell you right now, you are taking us backwards? All of these things are within the arsenal of strategies that are appropriate and workable. They don't have to be big, massive, crazy actions. Writing a letter to elected officials is the simplest of things that you can do in a civilization like ours, where it's so easy to do that, to share information, to participate. But from the small strategy to the big strategy, or the small action to the big action, there's this range of things that are all better than doing nothing. They're all better than just talking about the problem or feeling bad about it. Amongst those range of options of things to do, from something so simple as communicating, I'm just going to talk about it. I'm going to tell people in my network, my friends, my family. I'm going to tell my school board, my elected officials, or whatever, to the big things like I might quit my job and start an entire organization, or whatever. There's this one group within that range of things that you could possibly do that I think is really important, which is to contribute to justice infrastructure. Justice isn't a fleeting concept. It requires an infrastructure to do it. So we just talked about with Freedom Schools. Everybody here is a philanthropist, right? If you can give $5 a month to a strategy that is building a new apparatus for learning, a new platform for understanding, a new option for intellectual growth for people to fight back against the injustices in the world, then $5 a month, $10 a month, $80 a month, all the way down to, I saw something here, L. Michelle Johnson said, Sharif, she needs that clip of you talking about this so she can send it to her friends, to Negroes with money. Well, we're all Negroes with money, right? We're all people who have cell phones and, enough money to buy some things in life that we really don't need. So how much are we capable of contributing to justice infrastructure? Can you afford maybe to cover the cost of one of these high school mentors in the Freedom School program? If Sharif can tell us how much one of those costs, maybe we can set up a platform that allows you to fund one high school mentor to the kids. Or maybe you can fund one family. Since the families aren't charged, maybe you can set up a tuition fund for whatever, once we know what the cost of a family is. These are actionable, concrete, justice building, infrastructural building things that are totally appropriate in terms of fighting back the headwinds, which is all a bunch of hot white wind on the other side. But they are creating structures and infrastructures with laws and rules and money and foundations and organizations. So we have to do the same thing. We have to match energy.
Great idea, Chris. Thank you.
So let that be the real thing that we can do today. If you have $3, you got 50 cents to give. If you have $100, you got $5, $10, $20 to give. If you are one of what I call our 100,000-aires, we have lots of 100,000-aires. We like to talk about the billionaires and the millionaires. What we don't talk about is how many within our groups are 100,000-aires. Do something real with the money. Make the money work, and make it about justice building, not justice talking, justice building. So thank you all for joining us again for another Freedom Friday. At the end of this Freedom Friday, you are still not free, but hopefully you are freer and on the path to freeing us all with your actions and the things that you do. I'm committed. I'm going to do everything that I just said just now. I'm actually committing myself to actually literally doing. So we should build community around this idea, work together, and let's do more than talk. Thank you all for joining us. Sharif, thank you, brother.
Thank you,
again.
Thank you for the great, that was some great professional development you just gave me or just now too. So we'll work on like really a structure, like, hey, here's how much it costs, and people can kind of get in where they fit in, right? If they're interested. So if you could, this is the challenge I would have for you. If you could break down the costs of, if you could give people the opportunity to cover costs in a very specific way. This is what a mentor costs. And if you want to cover one, click this button. This is what a family who doesn't get charged. This is how we can expand it, because each family is $10,000 or whatever it is, whatnot. I think we can have a call to action to actually literally start covering those costs with our friends and family and our networks. Love it. Thank you. And especially as we get towards the holiday season, we're going to make people give this as Christmas presents. So there you go. Thank you all. We appreciate you. It's been another Freedom Friday. Let's keep pushing, y'all. Let's do the damn thing. Let's save ourselves, save our